Are we ready? Well, good afternoon. Let me start by saying I'm joined by Lillian Roberts from DC 37, Mike Mulgrew from the UFT, Steve Cassidy from the UFA, Pat Lynch from the PBA, Roy Richter from the Captains Union, Mike Palladino of the Detectives Union, and Greg Floyd from the Teamsters, and some of them are going to join John Liu and I in telling you what this is all about. Let me start by saying in Washington these days, government seems to be hopelessly gridlocked, with each party stressing only what keeps them apart and not focusing on what they have in common. In New York City, thankfully, I think we act differently. We think government should be about bridging differences and bringing people together in the broad middle. We have disagreements, that's true, that's only natural. But we can also find plenty of common ground on the toughest issues and work together for the good of all New Yorkers, and that's why we're here today. We found common ground on one of the most serious issues our city faces: the ever-increasing amount that taxpayers must spend on pensions. Those costs are driven by growing liabilities, but we believe that the investment returns on assets in our pension funds can also be significantly improved, which would save taxpayers lots of money. Think about it this way. The assets in our pension system are so vast that increasing their value by just 1% improves their worth by more than $1 billion. And the extra investment dollars that pension funds earn free up city taxpayer dollars that can instead go for police and fire protection, or for teacher salaries, or to pay for all the other essential city services that the people who are represented here deliver and underpin our economy. Given the budget realities that we're facing, I think everybody really does understand how important this is. And the best way to increase the value of our pension funds is by professionalizing and depoliticizing how they are managed. And that's the goal of a potentially historic joint agreement in principle that City Comptroller John Liu and leaders of the city's municipal unions and I are announcing today. This, I might point out once again, is a in principle kind of agreement. There will be details that we'll have to work out. But it builds on ideas that our administration have long supported and that Deputy Mayor for Economic Development Bob Steele forcefully advocated in a presentation to the Citizens Budget Commission in July. If you remember, we created the Mayor's Office of Pensions and Investments last year to foster just such changes. That office is led by Ranji Nagaswamy, who we were lucky enough to attract from the private sector. And she has worked closely and collaboratively with the Comptroller's office, especially with Deputy Comptroller for Pensions, Larry Schloss, who is a great addition to John Liu's staff and to this city. Together, their outstanding work with the boards and trustees of the pension funds has laid the foundation for today's agreement. Now, our agreement has three key elements which, together, we will be asking the legislature and the governor to approve, and I point out it has to have the approval of Albany. The first reform involves consolidating the investment management of the city's pension assets. Currently, they're managed in 5 separate funds, overseen by 5 separate boards. That is inefficient and duplicative. There are a total of 58 trustees of these boards, each with a different weighted vote, who decide pension policy. So instead, we're proposing legislation under which the existing boards would delegate their investment authority to a new, single, consolidated pension investment board composed of representatives from Labor, the Mayor, and the Comptroller. And by consolidating pension investment management in this way, we'll reduce consultant costs and transaction fees, and pension assets will be invested more efficiently than they are currently. This new board will set overall strategy for the management of assets, but will not be responsible for the actual management activities. And that's why, as to our second reform, we also agree that this new investment board will be directed to hire an independent chief investment officer. This officer would be responsible for actually carrying out the board's strategic priorities. To ensure full independence, he or she would not report directly to any elected official and will be appointed for a tenure that would not coincide with the term of office of any of the city's elected officials. The office that currently advises the existing pension boards on investments, the Bureau of Asset Management in the City Comptroller's office, would be brought under his or her direction. Because we want to attract world-class investment management professionals, this new chief investment officer and his or her staff would earn compensation consistent with what investment managers in the private sector earn. Third and finally, implementing these reforms will require a number of changes to city procurement regulations, some of which need state legislation. Now, before turning things over to Comptroller Lou, let me add these points. First, what we're announcing today is in agreement in principle, where there are significant details that need to be worked out. We're going to spend the next few months working on the specifics, but the three major stakeholders in managing the pension system, the mayor, the comptroller, and organized labor, agree on the fundamentals here. Depoliticizing pension investments, further professionalization of management staff, and the implementation of industry best practices. Those reforms, we think, will make a big difference in the management of city pension assets. They'll overhaul an antiquated pension management system that has needed restructuring for generations. Second, let me stress that at the same time, the city still desperately needs the state-level reforms that we've long urged concerning the city pension liabilities, including creating a new pension tier for new hires to the city workforce. That, in the end, we think is the only way to guarantee a significant reduction in the pension costs that have been siphoning away more and more of the dollars we need to pay for city employees and services. And the city will continue to work for those reforms as well. But this agreement really is a basic step towards potential historic investment reform. It will make our city a national leader in reforming pension governments, something that many never thought possible. And I think, in all fairness, this is a tribute to the leadership that John Liu has shown on this issue. He really has stood up. He's looked at the issues. We've talked an awful lot. And if you put the name John Liu on this bill, I personally wouldn't have a problem with it. In this agreement, he's putting the good of the city ahead of preserving the traditional powers and prerogatives of his office. And I think that really is a shining example of good government. So I want to thank him and his team, particularly First Deputy Comptroller Eric Eve and Larry Schloss, for getting us to this agreement. I also want to thank the leaders of our municipal unions here for their leadership on this issue. Now, we've got a lot of work still ahead of us, but I'm confident that this package of reforms will begin the process of putting our pension system on a path to sustainability. And we'll continue to advocate for those reforms in Albany, just as we will strongly push for the reforms I've just outlined. John, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all for joining us this afternoon. For a long time now, every single person in this room, from the mayor, myself, and certainly our labor leaders, we have talked about the fact that pension cost has been rising very rapidly, and that we do need to enact some measures to bring that under control. The pension reform that we're announcing today seeks to address the investment side of the equation, being that over the last decade, it's been poor market performance that's been the primary factor driving up pension cost. And so we've looked at how we make investments. And for 150 years, ever since the first pension system came into this city, the investment decisions have been made generally the same way. No meaningful or material reform for the last 70 years. Well, this paradigm, this new paradigm, will enable us to achieve better investment results in a more complex financial market that we have today. Depoliticizing, professionalizing, and streamlining the management of our pension funds will enhance our investment returns and lower pension cost, as well as protect our current and future retirees' pensions, improve accountability, and guard against the possibility of fraud and corruption. And today, with this announcement, this is a game changer. And I applaud and thank our labor leaders and the trustees in this room for delivering a solid win for taxpayers and city workers alike. The 5 boards under this plan would delegate their investment authority to a new pension investment board. That pension investment board will be made up of representatives of the mayor, of the comptroller, whoever that person is, and of course the unions that represent city workers. They will be supported by a highly professional staff that will be reporting directly to this pension investment board. Right now, there's a staff called the Bureau of Asset Management that reports to the Comptroller and essentially serves at the Comptroller's will. We're depoliticizing by taking this critical investment unit out of the hands of an elected official and having them report directly to the Pension Investment Board. This is a model that has made a great deal of sense and delivered superior results in other places across the country and Canada. And it's a system that we're not reinventing the wheel here. We're taking best practices that have already been experienced in other cities and states and provinces across North America. So I'm delighted to be part of this. This makes sense for the taxpayers. It makes sense for our pensioners, our city workers, who have bore the brunt of a lot of blame that they don't deserve. But this is about working together and doing the right thing for the people of New York City. Thank you very much. I want to thank, certainly, the mayor mentioned already, but our first deputy comptroller, Eric Eve, and Larry Schloss, who is currently our chief investment officer and deputy comptroller for pension investments. They and their respective staffs have spent innumerable hours putting this together. I want to thank all of the leaders here today who have been extremely patient, have been open-minded, wanting to come up with solutions, and I thank them for the countless hours of meetings that they've already endured, and that's just the beginning. Thank you very much.
John, thank you. I've asked some of the labor leaders who are here for their comments, and we're going to start off with Lillian Roberts. She is the Executive Director of District Council 37, as you know, Lillian.
I want to thank Comptroller Liu for not only discussing these proposals with the unions, but having able to answer our questions through the research that he set forth. And we look forward to the change because we need stability. And one of the things that we have found in our union is that the elected officials are not as stable as we are as potential retirees, and therefore we had to get very much involved. And I'm very pleased he was able to get us all together, since there's 5 different plans with different concerns. And certainly the devil is in the details. We look forward to working with him. But the one thing for sure is that we will have something to say about the people who will be employed to invest our resources. So thank you very much, Comptroller Liu.
Lillian, thank you. Mike Mulgrew, President of the United Federation of Teachers. Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Today, what you see here is an announcement about the labor leaders of this city coming together with elected officials to say we can do things better on behalf of our city. And I'd like to thank the mayor, and especially Comptroller Liu, for working this process through, bringing people together who all had a common goal. We can do better, and we need to do better. We want to make sure that people have retirement security. We want to protect the workers of this city, and also make sure that we are doing things to the best of our ability so that the taxpayers are also seeing that the city is working for them. And that's what we have done here. And this is the process that we should be engaging in at all levels of government. Labor came to the table. There was a political will to say, we want to do things differently, but we need to be part of the conversation, and we can come up with great solutions. We know what happened in the last fiscal crisis in this city, and when the labor unions came together. Well, once again today, you have an example of the unions, the leaders, saying, we can do something better. We want to make sure that people have retirement security, and if you work with us in a respectful manner, we can get there and always do things better. Thank you all very much.
Michael, thank you. Next, Steve Cassidy, President of the Uniformed Firefighters Association. Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank Mayor Bloomberg and Comptroller Liu for their efforts to get to this point in time. You know, it's always good to see elected officials who may have different views on certain things coming together, and I think the mayor highlighted that's what today is about. It's about labor coming together with the Comptroller's office and with the mayor and his team to, in effect, say there is a better way to invest money and generate better returns for the city of New York, which is better for firefighters and all pensioners. It's better for the taxpayers of the city of New York. And I did think the mayor was gracious and correct in saying that, a huge effort on behalf of the Comptroller, because in effect, he's ceding authority that he currently has. He's doing it because he knows it's right for the taxpayers in New York. The people standing behind me today, the labor leaders, are in effect doing the same thing. They're saying, we're willing to make this change because we believe it's best. And the model out there is simple. You look at the endowments, Yale, Harvard, the Rockefeller Foundation, which the mayor's former top deputy, Peter Madonia, runs. They all do better. Now, we're not advocating that we're going to be there and accept those kind of risks. Maybe we will make a change in the basket clause. Maybe there are other things that we can do. But right now, if we want to make an investment, it's like turning the Queen Mary around in the Hudson River. By the time you do it, you may be going in the wrong direction. And this is a huge step in making sure that we are more nimble, that we're able to act more quickly, that we have a professional team that can evaluate investments and make those changes so that we get better benefits, which is better for the taxpayers, and it's better for New York City firefighters, and that's why I'm here today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Steve, thank you. And next, Pat Lynch, President of the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association. Pat.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to start by thanking Comptroller Lou for starting this dialogue, the Mayor for continuing this dialogue, and our labor leaders for putting our heads together. This is an important and difficult first step. The devil is in the details. We will do our best to get those details to make sure our members' rights are protected. There's a savings for them, a savings for the citizens, which is equally our members as well as everyone in this room and on the streets of the city of New York. That's a difficult mission, but we're pledged to try to get that done. In the coming months, we have a lot of work to do. I think we can get it done. Time will tell, but those details are important, and we plan on sitting down and getting those details right.
Pat, thank you. Roy Richter, President of the NYPD Captains Endowment Association. Roy.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Comptroller. The financial markets, as everybody knows, have changed dramatically over the last couple of decades, but our pension funds have not. It's one thing to make a decision to make an investment to save taxpayer money, to provide protections for guaranteed pensions, but it's another thing to actually have that decision that you make take place 6, 9, 12 months later. You miss out on important opportunities. I'm very happy to be part of a leadership union and city government officials that have a vision, that's able to actually bring that vision into a concept and actually have a plan that's been placed together and has had all the stakeholders as a part of it. The devil is in the details. I'm looking forward to seeing what those details are to make sure my members, police officers, and other public workers' benefits and their rights and privileges are protected. Thank you.
Roy, thank you. Mike Palladino, President of the Detectives Endowment Association. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. To me, it sounds like the theme here is that when management and labor get together and push, we can move mountains together. You know, as a trustee on the police pension fund, you have a fiduciary responsibility, and when someone comes up with a concept that is going to put some relief on the taxpayers, it's going to maintain the level of benefits that our members are entitled to and they deserve, and at the same time going to increase the performance of our assets, well then I'm very, very interested in that and looking forward to working with everyone on it. And as everyone else here said, what's critical here is the details, but as I said, if we work together, we can accomplish the goal. Thank you.
Michael, thank you. Let me just also once again thank Greg Floyd, President of Teamsters Local 237, who's with us today, and Harry Nespoli, Chair of the Municipal Labor Commission, who couldn't be with us today, for all of their work. This is something that everybody's doing together, and it really is a game changer. This will go on for an awful long time, and if it improves performance of the pension funds, reduces their expenses, everybody is a winner, the people that are the beneficiaries of the pension funds, as well as the taxpayers. Be happy to take a question or two on topic if anybody has. Yes, miss.
Two questions. One, who's going to appoint the people on the new board? And two, do you have any estimate of how much this might save in, in 1 year or any given period?
Well, the big savings is going to be just in more efficiency. It's not so much just that there's an expense of, You don't have to have another piece of paper or another employee, although that is part of it. It is really that we can take advantage of modern portfolio techniques and work together, and all of the funds can be much more responsive. As I think Steve Cassidy said, when things change, this will be more reflective. John, you want to?
Yeah, I think immediately, in the short term, we can realize savings because we'll essentially be bringing in-house among city employees the investment function, whereas right now they are outsourced to, might I add, pretty expensive consultants that cost the funds hundreds of millions of dollars in fees every single year. Taking that in-house will produce immediate savings in those fees. We'll have to pay more for the investment professionals that we bring on, no question about it, but it will certainly be a big savings and expense. But in the long term, better governance has proven to result in better investment returns. We have many studies that have concluded, based on experience as well as in theory, that this kind of governance change can improve investment results by 1 to 2%. That is, as the mayor had indicated earlier, over $1 billion a year on a fund that exceeds $100 billion. Let me take a moment of privilege to say that Captain Al Hagen, the president of the Fire Officers Association, has been a great partner in this, and he has a previously scheduled family engagement today.
Sir.
Comptroller, how much of your willingness to cede authority here was prodded by what had happened up in Albany with the prior controller's pay-for-play scandal, and to a lesser extent some of the goings-on down here under your predecessors?
Since I took office, we've made a number of changes geared towards greater transparency, reporting, and disclosure requirements, all in the name of making sure that the investment decisions are made with one goal and one goal only, to enhance and to increase pension investment returns. In the last 21, 22 months that I've been in this office, it's increasingly clear that there are some impediments in the current structure that don't allow us to maximize investments, especially with a long-term view. I think the paradigm that we're talking about today will allow us to achieve a better model by which to make investments.
Steve, you wanted to say?
Yeah, Richie, let me just say, as a trustee on the Fire Department Pension Fund, the pay-to-play scandal in Albany, I think unfairly tarnished the New York City system. The New York City system is entirely different. The controller has votes, as you know. The mayor has votes, and the unions have votes. Nobody can do anything unilaterally. The system, in effect, immunizes us from a pay-to-play kind of scandal. But one of the problems there is it has taken longer to make investments, and one of the things we're doing, not changing the model, just making it narrower, which will allow quicker investments and better professionals, is going to save us a lot of money. But we've never been tied to that pay-per-play scandal.
Or you had some of the same players, including Havasu as controller.
No doubt about it, except let me just say this. Not one time did anybody imply that I'm aware of, certainly not the Fire Department Pension Fund, that anybody was contacting anybody to make investments. You couldn't do it. You could talk to the mayor's team or the controller's team. In effect, you needed everybody to make an investment, and that's one of the strengths of the system.
Other questions? Yes, miss.
Can you tell us what will happen to the current Comptroller CIO, Larry Schloss?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
What will happen to Larry Schloss?
John? Larry Schloss is a real professional, incidentally. I've always been a big fan, and when John hired him, I've known Larry Schloss for a long time, and I thought, what a great choice. You want to add the question?
Larry Schloss is the consummate, seasoned investment professional, and the city is blessed that he joined on as Chief Investment Officer in my office. He brought a great deal of experience to the office, both investment experience and also knowledge of what happens out there in other cities and other states. And as I said before, this is not something that we're pulling out of thin air. We're applying best practices that have already shown better results in other cities and other states. And Larry was one of the key guys that brought this idea to me. And so he's going to continue to be a tremendous asset. He is the Chief Investment Officer of the New York City Pension Funds. Honestly, he doesn't need this job. He wanted to do this job as a way to give back to a city that allowed him to achieve great success. So what happens to him, I don't know right now. But that will be part of the discussions going forward.
Sir?
Can you discuss how this new person is going to be evaluated and their work in terms of investments? The person who's going to be making these investments for the pension funds?
You want to, or Kaz, you want to add something?
Well, under the proposal, the new board that's going to be constituted, that's the board that the person's going to report to, and we'll have to work out how the actual hiring process works. But the person is going to be evaluated for their experience in managing investments and the extent to which, as an investment professional, they're going to deliver the best returns for this, for the 5 pension systems through this one new board. That eliminates all of the 58 trustees and so forth that we have now.
Just in terms of investment decisions.
Right.
Yeah,
And let me just clarify, the chief investment officer right now is appointed by whoever the city comptroller is. Going forward under this paradigm, the chief investment officer would be hired and contracted by the pension investment board, again, comprised of representatives of the unions, of the mayor's office, of the comptroller's office. And that contract will spell out the length of the service, the compensation, all of the things that would go into an employment contract.
But one of the things we're trying to do is to depoliticize it so there would not be, as when the administrations change, all of a sudden the investment policy changes. You can't run something like $100 billion pension fund that way. You have to have some continuity, and the whole idea here is to give you that. Sir, you had a question?
The timetable for rolling out these reforms, what sort of timetable are we looking at? And is it expected that the savings that will result from this would prevent any future layoffs that unions?
Well, the more investment return you have, the less the taxpayer has to put in, and there's money for doing the kind of service, getting the kind of services and the quality of services that the public wants.
I think that the timetable we're hoping for within the next few months, putting together the necessary legislation, as well as coming up with who would sit on this new pension investment board, and so those are the details that will be worked out, and that's what we kind of call phase 2. The final phase, obviously, would be enacting the legislation both locally and in the state that would be necessary to effectuate this change.
Other questions on topic? Let me just give everybody, you've had one, you have one. Back there, sir?
Yeah, just a continuation of that other question. Is there any expected savings that would go into this budget that would cover any possible cost cuts?
We're talking about savings over a long term. You don't overnight, I wish you could, improve pension performance dramatically overnight. This is to give us long-term stability. And pension funds, remember, have to pay retirees for, in this day and age, somebody could be getting a pension for 50 or 60 years. And so it's the long term we're focusing on. It has little to do with right now. What we're trying to do is to find ways to deliver the services the public wants, to reward our municipal employees for the great job that I keep saying they do, and to keep as many of them as we can. There was somebody else in the back. Yes, sir.
How would this new unified pension fund rank among pension funds, do you think, in the United States in terms of size?
Well, this doesn't change. This paradigm doesn't change the total amount of assets across the 5 funds. The 5 funds will remain separate.
It's about $100 billion total.
Yeah, it's about $100 billion total. The management of these funds will now be brought together, but they will still retain the separate accounts.
Yes, Miss, you had the last question.
Just the labor leaders, what made you decide to do this at this point, and what do you feel like you're getting in return?
It's a great idea. Our pension funds right now are performing well. If somebody has an idea that says, you know what, we can do even better, and it not only helps your fund, but it also helps the community and the city which we live in, why wouldn't we do it? And that's what we all engaged in this point. This works, it's smart, and it was coming together to make sure that we could get it done. I mean, these are not easy issues. There's a lot of conversations around pensions, as we all know, but our funds are performing well. We can do better. And it would require us to sit down at a table, and that's why I thank the Comptroller for saying, let's try to get this done, and we were able to do it.
Let me just... Yes, I'm sorry, Michael.
It's a great question, and I just would like to say on behalf of Labor, contrary to the way we've been beaten up in the newspapers and in the editorials. We care.
I will second that. I mean, nobody should think that the labor leaders aren't cognizant of the fact that the taxpayers have to reach in their pocket. That's why we want to keep growing business in this city. That's why diversifying our economy and getting other industries to come here, getting high-tech schools to move here, all of those things that will give us the tax base to be able to take care of those who work hard for this city. And if you want, I've always thought, if you want to have good people, you got to pay them. There is a reality, however, as to how much money we have. So that doesn't mean we can open the spigot and pay everybody as much as they want. But this, I think, will set the standard. New York City will have, in terms of best practices, in terms of what people think, we are going to be the leader in this country. There are other pension systems that are run well. Nobody will ever say how that New York City is not run well after this. And I just wanted to once again thank everybody for coming together. John Liu in particular, but he has been one of the champions here, all of his staff, all of the mayor's staff, all of the labor leaders behind me, and I know that all the other elected officials, I assume, including particularly those who are briefed, think this is a great idea and will be supportive. Now we have to get the details done and get to Albany and hopefully explain to the governor and to the Assembly and the Senate what this does and why this is important legislation. And I think my expectation is they'll be very supportive. Thank you. Also, it really is a good day for New York, going for decades. Thank you.